Sure. Here we are, the last Amud, the last even less than Amud of Bava Metzia. Here we are. Be'ezus Hashem, let's hope to finish Bava Metzia today. There's a little bit of a small diagram behind me over here. Welcome to everyone here in Avashalom, Ramat Bet Shemesh, and to everybody who watches us on YouTube and the beautiful Heilige Torah anytime. And of course, all of you in Zoom. There's a Mishnah. Let's just go straight to actually, before the Mishnah, I have something to say about yesterday. We still have a debt from yesterday regarding somebody asked me, Yaakov asked me a question, what's halacha l'maisa regarding throwing one's zevel, the manure, to Reshus Harabim, right? Allowing people to step all over it for 30 days, and then is that okay or not okay? And if anybody tripped over, would the person be chayiv or not? So the truth is, it's a takana of Yoshua. Yoshua ben Nun made a takana. I don't know if it applies today. Today the norms are different, but Yoshua ben Nun made a takana that in times of winter, when people shouldn't really care about the street being wet or muddy, because anyhow it's wet and muddy, those times, says Yoshua, you're allowed to throw your water, even your dirt there up to a point, and people can, whatever it's going to be, will be dealt with by people. And the question is, if anybody tripped over, if anybody slipped on it and damaged himself, will the person be chayiv, the one who threw the thing? So Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says no. If Chachamim allow you to do something, you're not going to be chayiv. That was Rabbi Yehuda. However, we don't pass like Rabbi Yehuda. So the Shulchan Aruch says you're allowed to throw your, let's say, that kind of sewage into the street and allow people to, whatever, people wouldn't mind to step on it with their shoes. But if anything happened, you are liable to pay. That is the halacha l'maisa. I don't know l'maisa in 2023, Tafshin Pei Daled, but this is what Shulchan Aruch says. In other words, there is a concept of Chachamim sometimes tell you may do it, but you do it at your own risk. Rabbi Yehuda did not believe in that, but halacha is not looking at like Chachamim. Says the Heilige Mishnah. Says before we start the Mishnah, this is the little diagram over here. This is the piece of land belonging to Shimon. This is Reuven. Reuven has, this is all dirt. This is all ground. This is all dirt ground, and so is this. Shimon and Reuven are neighbors. They have neighboring gardens. Now Reuven has like a terrace. He has his garden higher up than Shimon. Okay, Reuven has his higher up than Shimon, and Reuven has his stuff growing over here. The entire airspace belongs to Reuven. Shimon's surface of ground is lower than Reuven's, but Shimon, the airspace belongs to him all the way here. Okay, so now what happens if something grows? Listen to this. In this starting to grow in Reuven's ground, but starts jutting out. Rashi brings down example of, let's say, scallions, green onion, things like that, or shum, garlic. The actual bulb is in the ground that belongs to Reuven, but the airspace, the main part of the vegetables, or not some part of the vegetable, is in the airspace, which is really the airspace of Shimon. This airspace is all Shimon, right? So now these things grow in the ground of Reuven, but they are jutting in an important way, significant way, into the airspace of Shimon. So the question is, everything that's over here, who does it belong to? To the owner of the ground or the owner of the air? That's a question. Sounds like a war. Says the Heilige Mishnah, Shtei ganois zu al gav zu. Two gardens, one on top of the other, not on top, but the way I show you over here, like a terrace. One's level is higher than the other. Vayerek bentime, there's vegetables growing in between, meaning they actually are rooted in the field of the higher one, in our case, Reuven, but they are growing into the airspace of Shimon, of the lower guy. So who do they belong to? Rabbi Meir Oimer Shel Elyon. Rabbi Meir say they belong to the top guy, the one that has the higher ground, and soon you'll know why. That's what Rabbi Meir says. They belong to, in our case, the one we call Reuven. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shel Tachton. Rabbi Yehuda says no, they belong to the lower guy, the one that has the lower garden, the lower field. Omer Rabbi Meir. Now Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda are going to explain themselves. Each one will give a reasonable explanation to what he says. Omer Rabbi Meir, each one can say to the other, if the top guy, Reuven, will take away this land, Let's say where he would just, shave off this entire land. There won't be any vegetable, right? The vegetable won't be here. It depends on him. If he would take away that piece of land, shave it off and sell it to someone, the actual soil, there wouldn't be any vegetable here. The vegetable depends on him. That's where the vegetable belongs to him completely. Now, Omar Rabbi Yehuda retorts and says, no. If Shimon, the lower one, would fill the ground, it's his airspace. If he wants to, he can buy ground, he can get ground and fill this entire space. And then there won't be any vegetable, right? It will be buried underneath. Yeah. The vegetable is there because it's jutting out into the air. I decided to leave the airspace open. I could have just blocked the entire airspace, just blocking it with something, even stuff that doesn't grow, that's not arable. And Yandik, there won't be any vegetables. So each one, a tug of war, each one can say, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, each one representing, so to speak, another one of the litigants saying, depends on me. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, depends on the other one. Omar Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir now continues the conversation and says, listen, let's put our guns down. It's true that each one can protest on the other one. In other words, each one can say, I could have stopped the growth. No, I could have stopped the growth. But Lamaisa, if you think positively, look, at the end of the day, where does that vegetable live from? Where does it get its nourishment from? Obviously, from the top ground. Lamaisa, it does get when you I'm not talking now about territory. I'm talking here about the source of life. Where do those vegetables? They can be very long vegetables. I don't know, some green onion from the Guinness Book of Record, but Lamaisa, they start their growth and nourishment from whose ground? From the top guy's ground. So therefore, they should belong to the top guy, says Rabbi Meir, who supported the top guy all the way. This is Rabbi Meir. Now, Omar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon really is a development on Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Shimon is a Rabbi Meirnik with a certain qualification. Omar Rabbi Shimon, Kol sha'elyon yochol lifshot es yodoi v'litol harei shaloi, v'ash'ar shel tachtoin. You think that this is a very short little piece of very low piece of land. Maybe it's 5 meters tall, right? We don't know how long that is. Says Rabbi Shimon. I conceptually agree with Rabbi Meir, but I say as follows. If I would like to make like a chalukah, if, let's say this is very tall. Imagine yourself, this is like, I don't know, face 2 meters, yeah? Let's say, yeah? So now, if Reuven standing over here, yeah, can extend his hand, can easily extend his hand, can basically lower his hand and chap a vegetable that belong to Reuven. Because really they do belong to Reuven, because they really grow in his soil at the end of the day. But let's say this is the line, imaginary line, where his hand, not within his hand's reach, too low for him to reach, that those belong to Shimon. Why? Why do they belong to Shimon? Says Rashi, the person feels ashamed, feels embarrassed, yeah? Reuven and Shimon are not so friendly here regarding these vegetables, yeah? Reuven would feel bad to actually knock at the door of Shimon, go all the way, knock on Shimon's door and say, can I get the onions? Remember yesterday we're in BSD? Can I get those onions that really belong to me, but really they're growing too low for me to reach out of my hand's reach? Yeah. So, and the other guy would say, we're in times of war, so I'm kind of, mevater. Yeah. So then, because the person is not interested in, begging for what he deserves, really, by knocking on someone's door, he's mafkir, he's moichel. And therefore, although, says Rabbi Shimon, I agree with Rabbi Meir, that Ikar Adin, all the vegetables that grow here, although they're in the airspace of the lower guy, but they come from the ground of the higher guy, they really belong to the higher guy. However, I qualify that and I say it's only true if it's within his hand's reach. Depends how long his hand is. Maybe it's a gorilla. Yeah, but at the end of the day, yeah, but if it's not within his hand's reach, then they really belong to the lower guy because, he's already Moichel Toivis and there's something called dignity and therefore he's Moichel that. That is the Mishnah, in short or in long. Comes the Gemara again to qualify. Mishnah says the Gemara. Omar Rove. Rove is now again mitzamtzem qualifying what we said in the Mishnah. Ve'ikoroi kula almaloi pligi de Elun Havi. Both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, stress Rabbi Yehuda. Even Rabbi Yehuda agrees that the ikar also means not just root. Ikar means, right, the basic principle, ikar in Loshen the Mishnah, the root. Everyone agrees that the roots belong to the upper guy because that's where they are. the root or the bulb. Sometimes in some vegetables, the root is the main thing, or the bulb, right? The onion, the potatoes, where do they grow? As far as I know, under the ground. So whether it's worth yes or no, I'm not talking about the value now. Whatever the vegetable may be, the stuff that grows inside belongs. Everyone agrees. Even Rabbi Yehuda belongs to the upper guy. What's the machloikes? Machloikes is kipligi benoifoi. They argue about the what? Nof, the I would say nof in simple language is the branches, or vegetables don't have branches, the stuff that's jutting out, whatever that is. Yeah, the green leaves of the green onion, or whatever is sticking out into the airspace, that is a machloikis. That is the point of machloikis, right? You have stuff jutting out from the ground into the outside world, into the air. Oh, air. Oh, when it comes to air, Rabbi Yehuda gets very, kivyochel on his high horse, and says Rabbi Yehuda the follows. Rabbi Meir sovar shadi noifei bosarikoi. Rabbi Meir says, and that we've seen in many places, Basra, Shabbos, shadi noifei bosarikoi, which means whenever tree or vegetable, whatever, wherever the branches go, we always follow the ikar, the roots. The roots is what matters. Let's say I have a tree. All the roots, to make it simpler, these are all difficult sugis. All the roots are in my garden, and some of the branches jut out into my neighbor's garden. Lo ichpatli. It all belongs to me. You follow the roots, and therefore, what says Rabbi Meir? The top guy is going to get the entire thing because the root is by him. Therefore, you can have, in theory, I don't know, some vegetables that grows 1 meter long. I don't know, 2 meters. Lo ichpatli. It all follows the source, says Rabbi Meir. The Rabbi Yehuda sovar lo yamrinan shadi noifei bosarikoi. Rabbi Yehuda says no, not necessarily. The ikar is the ikar. The roots are the roots, and the bobs are the bobs. One story, and the knife is a different story because the knife, whatever is sticking out into the air, is now in the airspace and always was in the airspace of the lower guy, which we call Shimon. They belong to Shimon. That's the idea. Yeah. Do we say that the branches, whatever is out there, do we automatically make it follow the roots, or we don't make it follow the roots? That's very simple. Machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, and that's not the only place. And as we're going to see actually now, they argue in a similar way in other areas of halacha. And we're going to see now 2 other cases which are not identical. I stress because I want to avoid your questions. We're going to see 2 other cases in which Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda do not have the exact same machlokes, but a similar machlokes. Let's see. That's why, if you notice, the round brackets here, the Azda L'Tamayu is erased. You know the round brackets you don't read, right? Azda L'Tamayu means they follow their own reason. It's not exactly true. What they're about to say now is not exactly following what they said now, but it's same flavor, same idea. Let's see. The Tanya. We're going to see a similar thing. Tosfos says, by the way, it's not me saying, it's Tosfos saying. The Tanya says the Brisa, second to last line in the second to last Amud of Bava Metzia. Hayoitze min hageza umin hasharoshin. Oh, let's show my artistic talents again. Weiter, the Tanya. Hayoitze min hageza umin hasharoshin. Let's say the tree. Let's say again, Reuven owns. Yes, sorry. Shimon owns 1 tree only inside a field, and the field belongs to Reuven entirely. 1 tree is owned by Shimon. It's very simple. One sunny day, all of a sudden, something started jutting out, a small sapling, and an entire little tree, but it's not a branch. It's like a whole tree grew out of the trunk of the geza, or that's a separate case, not the same. It grew from the sharoshim, it grew from the roots. Yeah, but it's like a small tree as of itself. And that's actually the question. Do we view it as a whole new tree? Is it a completely new tree? Or do we view it as just a big branch of the big tree? That's a halachic question, which soon will connect to Rabbi Yehuda. And obviously, one question is about the ownership. Who is the owner? If it's just a derivative of the big tree, then what belongs to the tree owner, to Shimon? But if it's a whole new tree belongs to me, says the owner of the land, not to you. Same question about Orla. If it's a whole new tree, then you have to start counting 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and then you can use the Orla fruit, and they're not Orla anymore. If it's just a branch, you don't have to count Orla to every new branch. So that is the question, and soon we'll connect it to our sugya too, I promise. Says the Brisa, Hayoitze min hageza, a new tree, yeah, a whole new sapling came out of the geza. What's geza? Trunk, right? Or alternative, another case, mina sharoshin, what sharoshin? From the roots, yeah. Shorish, like source, shorish. Umina sharoshin, hare elu shel ba'al karka divrei Rabbi Meir. Says Rabbi Meir, but it's very clear. It all belongs to ba'al karka. Even if it jutted out of the trunk, they still belong to ba'al karka, because the tree really comes from the ground. And Rabbi Meir here follows his own reasoning that we always follow the ground. Rabbi Meir always goes to the roots, back to the roots, even if it's 10 meters long, I don't care. Since the tree came from the ground, I sold you one tree. I didn't sell you that. Now a new tree came out of the tree. So what? Your tree also came from my ground. Therefore, I always connect things back, 10 stages into what? Into the ground, says Rabbi Meir. Everything, even this one that came. However, there are opinions alluded to in Rashi that say that's only true if it's within 3 tvachim to the ground. Some say that Rabbi Meir would agree that if it grows in the top part of the tree, then they belong to Baal Ilan, to the tree owner. That's a question. But definitely there's a certain area, there, gray area, in which Rabbi Meir says that still belong to the ground. Just like in our Mishnah, he said that those green onions or whatever belong to the ground owner. Rabbi Yehuda, no, Rabbi Yehuda says depends. Rabbi Yehuda says I disagree. Mina geza shel Baal Ilan. Oh, if they jutted out of the geza, of the trunk, they belong to the tree owner. Because Rabbi Yehuda is not saying the same as he said here. Just like here, Rabbi Yehuda said that the stuff belongs to the airspace owner above ground. Here too he says they belong to the tree which is above the ground. Rabbi Yehuda is less connected to the ground. By us, he spoke about air, and here he talks about the tree. Rabbi Yehuda's common denominator, Rabbi Yehuda is less connected to the source, to the root. He's more connected to the current location, be it the air or be it the tree. Baruch Hashem. I just summarized to you Tosfos. Now, umina sharoshin sheba'al karka. I agree with you that if it grows straight from the root, because the root is under the ground, or even, it's under the ground, then it comes out of the under the ground, then although it came from the root of the tree owner of the tree, but because it's under the ground, it belongs to Baal Karka. And if the root is exposed, it may be different according to Rabbi Yehuda. But if it came from under the ground, although it came from under the ground, from the tree under the ground, the root, says Rabbi Yehuda, then they belong to the ground owner. Otherwise, they belong to the tree owner. Now, Vitnan, another Mishnah to do with Orla, as I promised to you, that is obvious other nafkamina. We also learned Nami Gabe Orla Ke Gavna. We saw a very similar concept Machlokes Rabbeinu Rabbi Yehuda regarding Orla. Ilan hayoytze min hageza u'min hasharoshin chayv be'orla divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir, following his own shita, says, listen, a new tree came out of the root, or even came out of the trunk, which is a tree. We view it as what? As a new tree. Why? Because we view it as something that grew from the ground. Last time I checked, when I was in kindergarten, what did we learn? A tree, something grows from the ground. I view it all, even if it grows from the trunk, I halachically view it as growing from the ground. Well, a tree that grew from the ground is chai b'orla. That's Rabbi Meir. I follow, I stick to my gun. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, no. Rabbi Yehuda again says, no. Depends, says Rabbi Yehuda. Mina geza potu. If it started growing, that small tree started growing from the trunk, is potu from orla. Why? Because it did not grow from the ground. It grew from the trunk, from the tree. Something jutting out of a tree. I call it a branch. Maybe a big branch may look like a tree, but halachically, it's just a new branch. There's no orla to every branch, otherwise you'd go crazy. You never, And there's no such thing. Only if it grew out of the roots. Since the roots are in the ground, are subterranean, therefore it grew from the roots, then it's chayav be'orla, because that's considered as a new tree. Now, give me a minute, and then there will be a little bit of time for questions. The tzrichi. The question is, why did Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda have to basically repeat the same machlokes with two applications, right? In other words, they argued about ownership, right? Who's the owner of the little tree? What's the question? There's really just one question. Everyone agrees when it grows from the roots, it's part of the ground, it's a new tree. The machlokes was a tree that grows from a trunk. Do we view it as if it grew from the ground? And therefore, A, belongs to the ground owner. B, it's a new tree, orla. Start counting 1, 2, 3. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, no, it grew from a tree. Something grew from a tree. A, belonged to Baal Ilan, to the tree owner. B, there's no orla, it's just a branch. But Lamaisa, why did they have to repeat the same machlokes twice? It's just two applications of the same machlokes. Let them argue in one case, and I myself would infer and understand the other machlokes too. Why did they have to? It's not exactly the same machlokes, but it's machlokes that's derived from one concept. Tell me the concept once, and I'll know how to apply it in two places automatically. Why do they have to say again? These are annoying. They don't talk for no reason. The Tzrichi answers the Gemara, and thank you for your patience. The Yashmein and Kamaisa, had you only told me the Kamaisa, the first machlokes regarding ownership, the Hokom or Rabbi in that case would say, of course, Mishum de Mamoina. When it comes to money, as I told you many times, comes to money, there's no Chumra or Kula. Yeah, one guy won 10 million in BSD, and the other guy lost 10 million. He said a Chumra or Kula. It depends for who, the loser or the winner, right? There's no strict or not strict. There's none yet. It's all relative. So when it comes to money, Kudber Rita says, listen, when it comes to money, I support the tree guy. I see the reason here that the tree owner grew from the tree. They should belong to the tree owner. Aval Gabi Orla de Isura. Oh, when it comes to Orla, which is an Isur Doraitze, Tofik Doraisa Lechuma. You don't play with Isur Doraisa. What happens if somebody eats Orla fruit? Gets Malchus. It's also Bano. So maybe then Rabbi Yehuda would be more wary, and Rabbi Yehuda would say, I wasn't talking about Isur Doraisa. That much I'm not daring to go that far. Maybe in Orla, which is an Isur Doraisa, to play it safe, Rabbi Yehuda would say, oh, here I agree with my colleague, my opponent, Rabbi Meir, and I would say, yeah, take Orla. Yeah, here I would see it as part of the ground, because really I see a connection to the ground, because the tree grows from the ground indirectly. Let's connect it to the ground to be on the safe side and call it Orla. When it comes to the two of them, what do you mean Machmir or Meko? I really see in my own mind that it comes from the tree. Give it to the tree owner. That's why we had to mention Machlokes not only about Orla, also that's why we had to speak about Orla, to tell me that Rabbi Yehuda goes all the way, even when it comes to Isur Doraisa, Rabbi Yehuda is all the way extreme in his opinion and says something grows from the tree is absolutely part of the tree and not a new tree, not even Orla. Go ahead and eat it in the first year. The Gehenim is on me, as they say. Yeah, no problem, says Rabbi Yehuda. Nah, the itma beho. So why don't you only mention the Orla case? So extreme, so this. So only mention the Orla case and don't mention the Ben Adom Lechaver case, the Choshen Mishpat. The answer is obvious. I would have said, if you had you only mentioned the Orla case, what about Rabbi Meir? I would have mistakenly thought the Hokom Rabbi Meir. I would say Rabbi Meir is only strict when it comes to Orla. Yeah, but Orla says Rabbi Meir, don't play games with Isur Doraisa, Isur or no, Orla, hands off, mister. Yeah, he grew from the trunk. I'm not sure. I'm on the safe side that maybe it's connected to the ground. It's a new tree. Aval Be'ahi, when it comes to Choshen Mishpat, two simple Jews, Reuven, Shimon fighting, maybe in the case of Choshen Mishpat, you'd be more, lenient. What I mean, lenient, either side, yeah. And they said, no, I can hear what Rabbi Yehuda says. Nice idea. It grew from the tree, so it belongs to the Baal Ilan for both nicht. Therefore, tzvichi. That's how we went to mention both machlokes of Choshen Mishpat and machlokes of Yoire Deya of Isurei Achila, for example. Yeah, because to tell me Rabbi Yehuda are very consistent in their opinions through and through. That's why we had to mention both. Yeah, question time. Then one more piece. And the last piece we'll leave for the Siyum. Yes, Peanut Gallery. Yeah. Omar B'Shimon came a third opinion in the Mishnah, which is really a Rabbi Meir supporter. Omar B'Shimon, yeah, Rabbi Shimon, kol she'eli nochon lifshoit, which means as long you have those vegetables growing in that fall, right? Between that very steep area between Reuven and the upper guy and the lower guy, halacha really belongs to the upper guy, like Rabbi Meir. So says Rabbi Shimon. Elamai, as long as he can extend his hand and take them, then they're his. Anything beyond his hand's reach, beyond his arm's reach, he's Michael and Mafkir, and he gives it to the lower guy, and that's what we assume, and that's how Rabbi Shimon paskins. Amri dever Rabbi Yanai, in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai, they said, Ubilvad shelo ya'anis, as long as it doesn't force himself. There's hands reach and there's hands reach. In other words, as long as it's comfortably normal within his hands reach, that is what we call his. But if he starts, extending himself like, acrobatics, like athletics, like he thinks he's in a gym and extends his hand, like Bas Paroi in the Teva, that we don't say. Yeah, That we don't say Aziz, it means normal hands reach, normal arms reach, that belongs to him. By Ravanan, Vitema Rabbi Yirmiyah. Ravanan, and some say Rabbi Yirmiyah asked the question. Makes sense, Rabbi Yirmiyah asks this question, soon you'll know why. What happens in the following case? Question. Magia lenoifoi ve'en magia likoroi. Let's say that those things grow upwards. In other words, let's say that in between, let's say that's the area in between. That's the garden of Reuven, and that's Shimon. Okay. Now, Reuven, the bulbs are here, and the leaves are up there. So he may reach the leaves, but he may not reach the ikar. That's a question. Yeah. The leaves are growing upwards, they're within his arm's reach, but the bulb is not within his arm reach. Or the other way around. How could that be? Let's say they grow downwards. Let's say they grow like that. In other words, he may reach the bulb, but he doesn't reach the leaves. Yeah? He reaches one part, but not the other. Then what would be the halacha? Is that called arm's reach or not? What's the halacha? Teku, the beautiful old-time teku. So what's the halacha in case of teku? What do you think Shulchan Aruch will tell us? Machmir with who? There's no machmir. Oops, there was not. Kind of. Ein motzin miyodoi. Very good. Lechatchila teku will leave them in the domain of the lower guy. But if the guy took them, the upper guy did take them, we don't take him out of his hands to return them to the lower guy. That's always teku. We leave things as they are. Teku also means leave things as they are. Teku, make it stand as it is. When we were in Kita Daled, and for many years I thought teku means tish beitar kushes ubais, which is true. Eliyahu will answer, but the poshup shot of teku means make it stand. Let it stand as it is. So whoever happens to hold the onions right now should keep them for Gesundheit Heid. Just continue all the way to the very last line, and then we'll celebrate the rest in the Siyum. Omar Ephraim Safra, Talmido shel Rish Lakish. Ephraim Safra was Rish Lakish's disciple. Mishum Rish Lakish, quoting Rish Lakish, Halacha ke Rab Shimon. Halacha is like Rab Shimon, and that's Shulchan Aruch, and that is what? If you have upper guy and lower guy, and the vegetables grow in between in that terrace area, then the upper guy is the one who owns them, who has them, as long as within his arm's reach. If it's not within his arm's reach, they're lower, they belong to the lower guy. And then they said it to the Goyish king. And then Shvur Malka, which is a non-Jewish king, they said it to him. And what was his response? That we'll see in the Siyum. Okay, so keep you in suspense. Wow, we did it. Everyone invited to my house Wednesday evening. I'll tell you the exact time. I think about 7:30. I hope it's not too late, but that's when I come from yeshiva. And 7:30 in my house, we'll have Parev light meal. Not like with washing your hands, salads, pito stuff, and also baked salmon. That's a plan. That's a menu. If you want to bring more stuff, because it's Parev, not milky, not fleshik, so I'll keep everyone happy. Yeah, I hope Wednesday night is okay with everyone. I don't want to start, Siyumim get schlepped out until everyone can make it. So I decided the time, unless most of you can make it. Yeah, good. Wednesday. My beforehand, that's also very good. Hatzlacha Uvracha. Wow, Bava Metzia. Big achievement. Who would ever believed we did it? At the hardest Bava is Bava Metzia. Azov, Ezu Neshech, all that. Okay, the rest will be mentioned in the Siyum. Hatzlacha Uvracha to everybody, and we're about to start now. Kiddushin. Yay. Thank you.